What's going on? This is Justin from the Dominance Academy. And today we're going to be talking about overthinking women, which the vast majority of you guys do. You guys kill it in your heads when it comes to talking to women or talking about women, thinking about women. So yeah, that's what we're going to get into today. So without further ado, let's hit that intro.
Welcome to the Dominance Academy, where we specialize in revitalizing manhood and leadership. Our approach focuses on developing men to lead with strength and passion, enriching their lives and their families. We provide practical solutions and expert guidance in the realms of sexual education and the mysteries behind polarity and structured power dynamics. Join us at thedominanceacademy.com and restore harmony to your home while rediscovering the joy of a fulfilling masculine presence. It's time to step into your role as a leader and as a man. And now, the host of the show, Mr. Justin.
All right. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about overthinking women. Today, I'm doing some preparations because it's maintenance day. That means that when homegirl gets back from work, there's going to be maintenance spanking. So she has to prepare herself when she gets home, and she's got to clean up inside and out, get herself ready for daddy. So. And maintenance spanking, if you do have spanking relationships, it's a pretty important thing because it acts as a very swift reminder of the emotional space that they enjoy. It brings them back into harmony with their submissive nature. And it feels good to them, especially after a day's work or just doing life. And then, the woman or the submissive or, whatever your situation with your labels is, you come back and it drops her into this state where all of that stuff turns off, all of the mental chatter, the emotional chatter, it drops away, and she sinks into this submissive role, and it provides immediate stress relief. It's odd. You'd think that getting bent over and commanded and then have your bottom whacked on a few times, that this would be a bad thing or wouldn't produce the effect that I'm talking about, but it absolutely does. It's a really, I don't know, I guess just a cathartic experience. I've never been spanked before, so I don't really know. So it's really just coming at it from the perspective of the spanker and watching a number of women go through this sort of transformation. And you'd be surprised how many couples do this in their relationships. There's a lot of domestic discipline relationships out there. So it's sort of an easy thing to transition into. Like, if you've got a relationship, chances are during sex there's been a spank here or there, right? And then you just figure out, like, hey, is this something that you like? Do you enjoy the feeling of being spanked? And it's like, well, let's try it outside of a sexual environment. Or you can start the transition by doing it not at the the height of sexual pleasure. Okay, so usually it's like when sexual intensity is at a high level, and then that's when you're gonna start giving her some whacks on her bottom. Try it at a different period in there. Like, put the spanking in like the ramp up period. Okay, so there's like the four stages. There's like the intro, then there's a ramp up, then there's the crescendo, and then there's the release. So the release is like after the orgasms, and then kind of bringing down the energy. So try it during like intro or ramp up, and and start light and then like progress heavier. And then you get into penetration and things of that nature, and see, like, try it out, like, see how that works. Okay. So yeah, so aside from my preparation, I've got out this interesting butt plug where it's remote controlled, and it's about maybe 4 inches long. And it's interesting because the top of it rotates like this, just a little bit, and then the base of it, it has like these little balls that kind of rotate around, so it like stimulates the opening as well as the interior. And so that's charging. And I've got a paddle, a ball gag, because I don't want to hear her. I don't want to hear the whimpering. So she's got a ball gag, and she has very sensitive nipples. So I have suction tools, right? And it's just this like little tube and with a screw top. And when you push it on the skin and then you untwist it, and it sucks. It's like creates like a vacuum through twisting. And you twist a little handle and it sucks the vacuum. You can put this on nipples. You can put it on clitoris. You can put it on like all over. It doesn't matter. It's the same idea behind cupping. Like if you're like the ancient Chinese practice healing, where they take like the glass globe and put heat under it to suck all the oxygen out, and then they quickly put it on your skin, and it creates a vacuum and pulls blood to the surface. I don't particularly like those because you can't control the amount of vacuum pressure with something like a hand pump, because they have those as well, or the kind with the screw. You can control the amount of pressure that's in there, and you can find these sort of things on Amazon. They're like dirt cheap. You can get like a pack of 4 for like $6. So give that a go. So moving on, overthinking women. I was talking with a client yesterday, and he has himself an issue, and it's particularly common amongst dudes with nice guy syndrome. And you overthink women, you really do. And really what it is, so his situation is that his background was that the mother figure was highly critical. So he learned at a young age, between the ages of, I think he said 8 and 13, which is a really pretty important formative years, okay? Because it's like just coming out of adolescence and into young adulthood. It's like that transitionary age. He's not quite a child baby anymore, but he's not a teenager yet. So he's like learning a bunch of different rules and like behavior, like where he's at within all that. And so with a very critical mother in the situation, he learns to A, like not rock the boat, and B, he learns to do his best to impress her, right? To make sure that whatever he was doing or however he was showing up was always in a good light, okay, according to her standards. And of course, he never healed past this sort of thing. And I was scratching my head for a long time trying to figure out why, when I talked to him, it sounded like I was talking to a child. And what had happened is that, and this happens pretty commonly with guys with nice guy syndrome or simp syndrome, whatever you want to call it, is they have a period of arrested development. So his development was arrested at that time period between the ages of 9 and 13. And so that's really like how he behaves. It's really bizarre. But I understand it. I understand the mechanisms involved and things like that. But this led him in his nice guy ways to get into the habits of placating to the desires of women, trying to stay on their good side, and doing whatever it takes to not rock the boat. Because when he was in that age grouping, or during that time of his life, he learns that if he rocks the boat, it meant some sort of retribution from the mother, and he would then experience a lot of emotional pain. He would feel that rejection of her, like that he wasn't good enough. And this this turned into when he was when he was feeling this retribution from her. And I don't think it was ever physical. I think it was all verbal and emotional. He felt he internalized this rejection, and now he takes it upon himself. Like when he screws up, he really, really gets down on himself. Like he rejects himself even more if he makes some kind of mistake. And so he has this internal dialogue that is constantly just checking himself. And so, and then on top of that, because of this hyper awareness of not wanting to screw up, he overthinks. And a lot of you guys do this. A lot of you guys get stuck in this cycle of overthinking. And this is partly it's partly overemphasized. Well, not overemphasized, but it's partly like exacerbated within these men's spaces on YouTube and on other areas of social media, where it's all about like figuring out women. All right. And the thing is that I noticed within my life as I was growing and maturing is that the more I was focused on who I am, was more focused on my principles and my rules of behavior, the less I cared about what women were doing. And it turned out that the more I focused on that, the more results I got from when I wasn't focusing on it. So prior to my development and understanding who I am and living by principles and having a set of rules, I had certain desires, certain outcomes that I wanted. Okay. Now, after having this development, I get those things, but it's due to not thinking about them or doing anything for them. I don't have to instigate those desired outcomes. They just come as a result of living based on my principles and my rules. And the funny thing is, though, is that now I no longer really care as much. It's no longer the priority that it once was, or the priorities. Well, the priorities shifted, right? So, I wanted to be desirable. I wanted to be like more sexually desirable than I already was. And it's like once I dropped that sort of stuff, once I stopped really giving a shit about whether she's attracted to me or not, they became more attracted to me. But once they were, I no longer really cared, because now my focus is their mind, their patterns of behavior, and bringing that in line with what I expect, And so this is really, that's where the profound transition happens. Okay. So we were talking and just kind of like figuring out where he's at and, what he needs. And, I spoke about the hatchet, the axe, and the compass before, and how, typically that's used with other people in other situations where you want to curtail any sort of behavior that is negative towards your home, your house, your being. But what he didn't realize is that he can use those same tools with himself. So he has been set out on a mission to use the hatchet and the compass on his own mind whenever he has negative thoughts about himself, whenever there's self-criticism or self-rejection. Because when you have this base habit of rejecting the self, it's necessary to strong arm your mind into doing something else. Because he thought that by going through all of his homework assignments, by going through his reading assignment, by doing the exercises, by having calls with me, that he was somehow going to change through osmosis, that he wouldn't actually have to grab a hold of his mind and make it do something else. And this is the problem with a lot of guys, is that you're very good at theory. You're very good at theory. And a lot of theories are getting very well mapped out in the space, because there's some very intelligent and experienced people out here who are able to map it out such that people who do have problems, they can just listen and copy what these people say. They can understand it on a conceptual level, but it doesn't exactly change who they are at their core. because that requires specific effort in order to do so. All right. So know that no amount of books or videos that you're watching are actually going to change you. You have to do something. Okay. They say knowledge is power. That's a half truth. It's actionable knowledge is power, right? Because having your head full of information doesn't exactly make you powerful until you utilize it. So you're going to have to utilize these things. You have to put them to use, make it work. All right. And so that kind of brings me to what I'm going to talk about here today about this overthinking. And a friend of mine sent me a link to this website called illimitablemen.com. And it's a bunch of maxims. And I think I went through some of these before. And, to me, it's very clever. It's wise maxims for life and the things going on in between men and women. Okay. But the thing is that it's great in terms of like concepts, but it turns like after a while, like all this like theorizing and concepts and logic and all these things, after a while, it basically just becomes mental masturbation. I mean, let's just face it, guys. And then a lot of dudes are just out here, they're out here basically just like bickering with each other, right? Like there's no real things happening, right? Like in their lives, they're just kind of going back and forth with each other about these concepts, like philosophers would. But it's like, well, what's really happening? All right, so I was going to read through some of these and pick them apart and just get the idea here. There's this one about like, what was it? Is it 25? There's a shitload of them. Okay, so yeah, this is like dominance, submission, things of that nature. So I will read through these here. All right, this is maxim number 24. Okay. As her control increases, actually, you know what? I'll put the link in the chat. So if you guys want to read along, you can do that. So here we go. All right, so I'm reading number 24 here. As her control increases, her attraction and respect decreases. As her control decreases, her attraction and respect increases. If a woman is with a submissive man trying to become dominant, she will utterly oppose him. She has accepted he is submissive, and so she revels in the power her control gives her. If he becomes dominant, she loses the power and resources her monopoly granted her, and she will never forget his old ways. She will never really believe he is a worthy leader. This is entirely untrue. Okay, like it sounds good in this conceptual place, but what we're talking about here isn't logical. All right, at least in the woman's world, it sounds logical, but her reality is not governed by logic. All right, it's governed by feeling. And so I can tell you firsthand that men can change. I've changed a number of them myself. So guys can change from, say, a submissive who's the doting yes dear to becoming a more dominant leader type who garners her respect and her and admiration. And she ends up like letting go of the control. Okay, now there's a lot of factors involved because let's say she has very high trust issues. It doesn't matter, even if you come in as dominant, if she has major trust issues, she's going to have a difficulty letting go. All right, it's very much dependent upon the man, but there are limits to it. Okay, you cannot fully control the woman's mind from the point you meet her till, whatever, development of a relationship. Okay. So we're dealing with like complex humans here. All right. It's not so black and white and, laid out in this way. And so, yes, she will forget about that previous role if you are adhering to it, if you're consistent with it, if your belief structure has changed such that you're not putting on an act, you're actually being that guy. You've become that guy. And through consistency, she will learn to let go of her control a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more, right? Because it's not just this light switch. It has to do with trust on her side. So it's a gradual process of letting go. And frankly, it goes on forever. So you can get submission from a woman to a certain level, but there is infinite depths of submission, just as there are infinite depths of self-knowledge. There's infinite depths of domination. Okay. So it just goes on forever. There's really no like stopping. It's like, okay, she's submissive now. And that means 100% through her entire being, her entire spirit, her entire will, she has just given it to me. No, there's always layers. There's always layers. So just know that. And yes, she can and will forget, because emotions will forget, right? Think about it. A woman could be with a guy who had mistreated her, and it was a bad breakup, bad relationship. She was, she had like some emotional trauma due to it. And within like 2 weeks, she could meet a guy and boom, that other dude is completely forgotten. And she's way into this guy. Okay. It happens like this. It's not right. It's not unreasonable, but it does sing true here about control. Okay. So the more control a woman has, the less ability she has to be attracted and to have respect for the guy. As she lets go of control, then her respect can increase. Okay. But there's a caveat that you're the guy who knows how to lead. Okay. It's very important. So there's a lot of factors here. And like I said, these things sound good on paper, but there's a lot of nuance to human interaction. All right. So number 25, the optimized female sexual strategy compartmentalizes the roles of men. We call this female sexual plurality. See, like, come on, like with the mental masturbation. Geez. All right. Women have a dual nature to control and be controlled, for their fluidity permits great perversity. With the dominant, she can satiate her masochism, right? Masochism is the desire to receive pain. With the submissive, she can satiate her sadism, the desire to give pain. In this way, she indulges her lust for power with the submissive man and her lust to feel feminine with the dominant. Again, this is not a black and white thing. It's like it's generally true, but it's not really. It's a lot more gray than this. A lot more gray. I mean, you can grant your submissive woman control. Like you can tell her what she can choose. You can give her like parameters, just like when you're dealing with a child and you say like, well, what do you want to do this afternoon? You can choose this, this, or this. Now the child feels like they're in control, but it's control within certain boundaries, right? So it's true and exists, but it depends on a lot of factors of the relationship and how you've set it up. Number 26, if she is with a submissive man, she prioritizes her happiness. If she is with a dominant man, she prioritizes his. With the dominant man, making him happy makes her happy. The submissive man's happiness has no such effect, so she deems it irrelevant. Like, again, it's not so black and white. All right. Women will always prioritize their happiness. Always. Now, she might also prioritize the man's happiness that she's really into and that she respects, call him a dominant man, whatever. Okay. But the guy that she's really into, that she has respect for, she's going to prioritize his happiness because she learns that when he's happy, it allows her to be happy as well. Okay. She's prioritizing her happiness in that way. Like, I get happy if I make him happy. Right. So it's still her happiness as the motivator. Okay, it's not just like, oh, I have no feelings about my own well-being, my own emotional, support and upbringing. That doesn't even exist for anymore. I only focus on his. Like, that does not exist. Okay, it's one of our base needs as a human being, and it just doesn't vanish just because she's around some dominant guy. All right, either action is motivated by her own happiness. That's what a lot of us do. I mean, I'd say like every human does this, right? Even some degenerate drug user, their happiness is going after those drugs, right? So it's these, like I said, these sound good, but it tells me that whoever puts these together has a great thinking mind. I'm sure the dude's intelligent, all right, but without experience. Right? Remember what I said? Knowledge is power, but it's even more powerful to have actionable knowledge, practical, useful knowledge that you've actually put to use such that the things you're saying are actually true, not just theories, not just concepts. All right, let's look at 27. Women, no, that one's stupid. About commitment. Yeah, all right, maxim 30. It's not so much a question of if she is a whore, but rather a question of if she is not. This is bullshit. This is complete bullshit. And I'll Oh, yeah, I didn't even know who this was. Jack Murphy. I have no idea who this guy is, but thank you for putting that in the chat, Guns. So yeah, this thing about whores, not so much if she's a whore, but rather a question of if she is not. Dudes with no experience. See, this is another thing that tells you, like, when guys speak on this and think like this, they haven't had enough experience of women to understand women. This is from a distance, looking at them with binoculars like they're on some kind of fucking safari. Okay. Women are just women. They're good girls and bad girls wrapped up in one in varying degrees. Okay. But within every woman, there is a filthy whore. Within every woman, there is a chaste good girl. And it all depends, not all depends, but how that shows up is dependent on a number of factors, a whole wide myriad of factors. And one of those includes the type of man she's with. Okay? You could take a complete whore who's been a whore with other men. Maybe she's got an OnlyFans account or whatever. She sides up with some other dude who has a upbringing of something else and behaves in a certain way, and it just completely shuts down that sexual side of herself, that sexual adventurous side of herself. Whether he is too controlling or too jealous or too nice or, all sorts of stuff that would shut down that more feral, wild nature of hers. Okay. And then there's another guy who maybe has just a very, devil may care sort of attitude. And he is very easygoing. He's easy to talk to. He elevates her emotions. He does a lot in the emotional and mental areas. She's going to be that whore for him. And she'll probably show up as the good girl for him as well. Right? Because if she really likes him, she's going to want to show him that she has more. Okay. And try to prove to him that she has other aspects that are worth taking on. Okay. And the irony is that these guys who make these maxims and these beliefs, they say that they want a woman who's not a whore, yet they're all addicted to porn. They would love a woman to be able to just deep throat as if they're having sex with a vagina. A woman who takes it in all holes, is exceptionally enthusiastic about sex, loves wearing costumes, loves just loves dick, loves that man's dick. Okay, that she's with. Like these guys would love to have an enthusiastic whore as a girlfriend. Okay. They just don't want it to be known or desired by any other guy either. So she can't be a whore for, anyone but him. All right. Now, this can happen. You get a good girl who has not had much sexual experience. If you know what you're doing because you've had enough experience and you understand the woman's mind from a very wide and deep perspective and know how to lead it and inspire it, then yes, you can bring this woman who has very little experience into her whoreness. Okay. But in the same way, if you're that same type of person, you can bring her to anywhere you want. So whore, not whore, good girl, bad girl, it doesn't matter. It's just women. That's it. Just women. And all these fears and beliefs and shit like that is just fears and beliefs. And it's not anything experienced. All they can do is take their theories and then use a bunch of stories that they found online to support their claims. But it's not their own lived experience. The best knowledge is the knowledge that you acquire from experience, because then that it's true, at least for you and your lived experience. Let's see. 31. Prudence necessitates that one requires evidence of woman's innocence rather than assuming the existence of such. The assumption that innocence is an intrinsic feminine quality is an almost universal tragedy that has cost many men a great deal. Right, so this is basically like looking at a pretty girl and assuming she's innocent. And then that getting guys into trouble. And yeah, this is true. Like, guys just get way too easily distracted by a woman's appearance. Maxim 34, men must become powerful to be loved. Women and children need only to exist. This is entirely untrue as well. See, again, no experience whatsoever. Because men, they do have to become powerful, but they're going to be thinking this has to be some external power. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. The power is always internal power. That he is a completely sovereign mind. He has beliefs in himself that holds him to the earth. This is power. So yes, he has to be this way, whether he has worldly achievements or not. Those don't really change the core of power within a man. Women and children need only to exist. As a father and as a man who's been with a number of women, this is completely untrue. They don't just get to exist. As a man and as a leader, you must guide them to become better than what they are. Which means you have to have an understanding of teaching. You have to know learning models. You have to be able to teach, instruct, assess, and encourage someone to grow past the points where they are. This is what a man does for a woman. And this is why the vast majority of guys suck with women. Well, it's one of the reasons why. Because they don't have this skill. They don't have this desire. They just want to get laid on a regular basis. That's it. It's like, well, dude, if that's your only motivation is your dick, then just get a prostitute. Stop playing around with trying to make this woman that you really don't want to be just your sexual outlet. Just go find women who are giving this to men. They're called prostitutes. You can just go find a woman, pay her, and then she will be able to give you whatever it is that you need. That's what it is. That's all you guys need. And he goes on to marriage, marriage bullshit. Number 47, it is inextricably womanlike to control the attractive man with sex. When libido wins, she fucks for pleasure. When lust for power wins, sex is rationalized like a drug and used to condition a man with Pavlovian precision. Yeah, and so the way out of this is to not let sex control you. Do not let your lust control your moves. Once you do, you are just handing over power to a woman. You're just basically like playing poker with your cards facing the wrong way. And you're like, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm going to be betting. This is my strategy. This is all I want. You can decide. You can decide how we move. And I'll just do what you want as long as I can get sex in the end. Now, here we go. Number 46. Women weaponize sex, for it is their trump card and often their only card. Exactly. But guys like this, I can guarantee, are fucking obsessed with pussy. They're absolutely, like the entire maxim. All of this is a cope to deal with the fact that they just really, really want sex. And it's like, well, instead of that, why don't you, instead of making this bullshit, investigate why that is like the running common denominator in your behaviors towards women. You're like, well, it's our biological nature. No, it's your biological nature to procreate. Literally, you can have sex once in your life and fulfill your sexual nature. Okay? So what's this preoccupation with getting laid? All right. Why do you have it in the first place? And really dig in. It's a psychological thing, not a biological thing. Okay. Women are Machiavellian as wet as water. Number 45. Yeah, that's true for those that are easily controlled by sex. Number 48. When a woman manipulates a man she does not find attractive, she does so through feigned frigidity and sex appeal rather than through sexual act. Yeah, that's true. Number 49. It is in a woman's interest to give deliberately mixed signals. For those that don't know how to lead women, there is great power. See, because in order to be able to say that about mixed signals and it is in a woman's interest to deliberately give mixed signals. Mixed signals are only a thing for those who are looking for signals, right? If they don't exist to you, then you're not going to be looking for them, and then you're not going to care whether they're deliberate, mixed, or not. Okay? There is great power in even a potential for sex. As such, it is in a woman's interest to have men believe they have a chance. For as long he believes this, she exercises power over him. Yep, that's exactly what I said. But again, that's only for dudes who are run by sex. And then, like what he said, there's she's able to gets rationed like a drug and used to condition a man with Pavlovian precision. You know, in my relationship, I have basically a free use thing. Like I can fuck her wherever I want, whenever I want, in whatever way I want. Whether it's like 3 a.m. or 6 a.m. or right when she comes home from work or whatever the fuck she's doing. Like I can, like in the middle of cooking, I can fuck her in the kitchen. And the thing is that it's not about my pleasure. I often don't even have an orgasm. It's for the mental aspect. Remember, everything is about sex, but sex. Sex is about power. It's this act that says, you're mine, and I'm going to use you however I feel, whenever I feel. Now, of course, I've got a strong moral compass, so I'm not going to abuse her or anything like this. But the point is that it's not about my pleasure. I'm not doing this just so I can get off or because her holes feel good or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's because it's important as the general structure of the relationship that is maintained that I am in my role and she is in her role. And it can easily be expressed through sex. Where she's like cooking, I turn off the flame on the stove, grab her, spin around, and put my hand on top of her head and drop her to her knees for like a couple minutes, right? And then bring her back up, smack her on the ass, and say, "You may continue." Like that, and it's just for the sake of expressing that power differential. Okay. But you can't be in the place of seeking pleasure and be able to be the conductor. They're antithetical. So you will never be able to lead or be impactful to a woman that you're with if you are driven by pleasure, because you're basically just putting the collar around your neck and handing her the leash. That's what you're doing when you're like, pussy, 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 gotta get laid, pussy, pussy, pussy. That's what you're doing. All right, number 50. If you try to debate with someone whose mind prefers emotion to reason, you will engage in a grand exercise of futility that exhausts the patience. As such, do not argue with women. It is pointless. You cannot argue with feelings. You can only manipulate them. Well, yeah, that's true. You can't argue with feelings. Yeah, this is just a bunch of, I mean, there's a couple of reasonable points in here, but for the most part, this is coming from a man who just does not have experience with women. And you can tell like through and through, but only if you're the one who has experience as well. You conflate her, number 10, you conflate her beauty with good character. These things are distinct, but mesmerized by beauty. You think they're identical. Yep. Advertising uses it a lot. That's why models are good looking, right? Because it instills a feeling of trust and goodwill and good feelings. So, imagine if they tried to sell you a can of Coke with like someone who looked really mean or looked really unsavory or dirty or, lived under a bridge, and they're like, buy Coke, you'd be like, oh, no. Right? So of course they're going to use a beautiful person. They're going to put a model up there who is pleasant in demeanor and their appearance, and increases sales. Maxim number 1, the tougher the men around her, the softer she is. The softer the men around her, the tougher she is. The toughest woman is the fatherless woman, for the fatherless woman seeks a surrogate by whoring herself. I don't understand the surrogate for whoring herself, because like I said before, the whore spirit can come out in a number of different ways. But I will agree that when not tough, tough is the wrong word here. The tougher the men are, I would say the more congruent and grounded the men are around her, the softer she is. The softer the men, the more, the more grounded she needs to be, right? Because there's no men around creating the groundedness for her. Okay. And that's really what's going on there. What do we have here? A lot of these Manosphere, Red Pill, etc. channels, website courses, coaches that are all echo chambers. Yep. Guys, think if they understand these big words, that makes them smarter and better, when it actually keeps them in a trauma loop, repeating bad behavior and coming back to that community to continue to pay money for the answers and secrets. Yes, this is absolutely true, Guns. It's just a bunch of shit, but it stems from the original place, the title of this video, Overthinking Women. Okay. I can't remember where I heard this, but the guy said, women don't want to think, they want to feel. And if you keep that idea in your front pocket, not your back pocket, you keep that notion in your front pocket that women want to feel, they do not want to think, then this will give you the answers. Well, at least it will lead you in the right direction to find the answers, because all of this thought about women is just going to keep you in a thinking state. All right. A great way to understand, excuse me, a great way to understand how to affect women is to understand emotional impact from stimuli and how that works. Like, why is it that when you hear a certain song, the hair raises on your forearm, right? Well, like, how does ASMR work, right? And I've had real like ASMR experiences, this like crazy tingling sensation that goes across your scalp, sometimes down the back of your neck, and and it feels really good, but it's just from hearing a sound. Okay. How is it that you can look at a beautiful painting in a museum and you're filled with a certain feeling just from looking at a picture? Like, how is that possible? This is where your mind should be going, not towards fucking, you know, uh, women, much unlike men, does not see marriage as a legal contract or responsibility. She sees it as security and the celebration of itself, the actualization of a childhood fantasy. Like, okay, let's say that's true. How does that benefit you as a man knowing that? It doesn't. It because it's not connected to anything that you live by. It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you more grounded. This knowledge is useless. It makes you think that you've got an advantage. That's the problem, because it sounds reasonable. It sounds logically put together. Okay. It sounds smart. Okay. So when you read it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay. And having that feeling of something making sense gives you a feeling of control. When something makes sense, right? You like a puzzle, you're putting a puzzle together and it starts coming together and you're putting pieces out faster and faster because you're running out of space. Now it's making sense. And you get this feeling like, okay, this picture is making sense to me. And you get a feeling of control. So when you're reading these things, this gives guys that sensation of being in control. But it's not real gains. They're not real gains, because if you really look at it, you're still the same dude sitting there who's doing nothing, who doesn't have what he wants. It's like, if you want a woman in your life, understanding this bullshit isn't going to get her there. You're going to have to know you better, right? Like, if you look through this shit, it's all about women. It's all about women and how to navigate or circumnavigate, potential problems or their so-called nature. You know what I mean? This is not the way. This is not the path. Manhood has nothing to do with that. Like that website, there's nothing in there about men. It's all about women. And so, as Guns was saying, they're stuck in these loops. They're stuck in these loops of overthinking. And it's all like, as much as they're like trying to minimize women and like, oh, because like when you figure something out, it tends to minimize because you can categorize and put it into some sort of box and make you think you understand it. So it's this minimization of women, but they're still prioritizing them. So it's like, I put you in a box, but you're still high up on the shelf. It's like, you're never going to get where you want to be as long as you're thinking about what the hell is going on inside a woman's head. I don't give a shit what's going on inside my woman's head, unless it's something really bad that she has a problem with that's causing her a lot of pain or some confusion or whatever. And she comes to me and she says, Daddy, I need your help. Daddy, can you help me with this? Daddy, I've got a question. Okay. Other than that, I don't think about what's in her head until she's invited me to think about what's in her head. Makes sense? I'm more concerned with what I'm thinking, what I'm planning. And if she's part of it, I'm going to be thinking about what her role is in that idea, that plan, or what have you. Like when I first started the show, I was like, yeah, I'm preparing for her maintenance spanking session. I've got it all mapped out in my head. Am I thinking at all about how she's going to be thinking or feeling? No, it's not of my concern, because I do have a base level understanding of like, okay, this is somebody that I care for. This is the aim is for her development and her emotional groundedness, her submission. So that's the underlying, feeling and understanding there. But I'm not thinking about it as it relates to what I'm going to do, because it's reflecting off of that. So everything that I'm planning, there's no thought of how she's going to take it, what she's going to be feeling or whatever. It's more about what the plan is for, and how I'm going to enact the plan. It really has nothing to do with her. I mean, it does, but the planning part doesn't. Okay. The fact that it's happening, yes, it's for her, but it's for a deeper part of her that she really doesn't have much control over, which is the core of herself that I access, that she allows through her submission. Right. So the only part that of control that she has is the ability to open that door for me to come in and do what I do. Okay. And that door opening is based around trust. That trust is developed through my consistency, right? And my consistency is based in the belief of myself. So it's all based around me. I hope you guys can see that, like the chain of those elements. It always comes back to you. Always. There's no way about it. And like I said before, when I was transitioning, I realized, like I said before, that the more I focused on my principles and my rules, the goals that I have, my values, the things I want to create, the less it mattered what she was thinking, feeling, or doing. Because I was just looking at this, and then she comes into what I'm doing, and if it fits, great. That's all that matters. Like, are you doing? I don't care what she's thinking about it, how she feels about it. Is what's getting done being done? Okay, like Lucario brings this up often as well. He's like the master of analogies, and it's like, you guys may have had a job in the past where you did not like the job. Okay, maybe you didn't even like your employer, maybe you didn't like the fellow employees, but you went to the job. Okay, your employer doesn't give a fuck how you feel that day. All they care about is, are you showing up? Are you showing up on time? And are you doing what's required of you so that you can get paid and go home? That's all that matters. How you feel at the end of the day doesn't matter to the employer because they've got other goals. Now, would they like you to be in a better state, a better mood? Okay. And some bosses, they will see that within you. And if they give a shit, they'll be like, you know what? Carl, he looks like he's having a bad day. He seems really distracted. And I'll be like, hey, Carl, what's going on with you? You seem upset. You seem distracted. You all right? And some bosses are like that. But at the end of the day, the bottom line, because if that's something super crazy and he can't do his job, I'd be like, dude, I'm really sorry to hear that, And then if it continues, then it's like, oh, okay, I've got to worry about this business. Like, I feel for Carl, but it's affecting his job performance. And I'm like, hey, Carl, you know what? I don't want to let you go, but you're going to have to go on like a paid vacation. You're going to be on like 2 weeks of paid vacation. Go seek some therapy, go to your family, figure your shit out and come back and get back to work. And if you can't do that, it's like, I'm sorry, but you're going to be replaced. This is the mentality. Like, you don't have to be cold, right? There are options. But the base root of it is the structure that you need in order to operate. You can do that with compassion, or you can be fucking cold about it. But in either case, the underlying structure must be maintained and must continue. Okay. And this is where guys with simp syndrome, they fuck up because they are willing to change that structure, if they even have one, to maintain that other person, so that they'll stick around and, because they can't fathom losing them. It kills them to be lost, right? Or to lose that person in their life. You cannot let this happen. You cannot be in a position where you're scared. You cannot be in a position where you're scared of losing these women. It's okay. Like, life goes on. I know somewhere in your past, you have been through something where at the time of that event, you thought it was the most important, crazy, fucked up, fearful, just shit situation. And you couldn't see past it. And now years later, you're still here. Everything's okay. And you can look back at that situation and go, well, yeah, it was pretty bad at the time, but life goes on. I'm here. Things have changed. I've progressed. And that's just something that happened in my life. And I learned quite a bit from it. So this is something that you have to take into account. It's like, you're having problems with this woman, and it's like, oh, you think about dumping her or whatever, but it's some sort of like big ordeal in your mind. It's not. It's really not, because 10 years from now, you look back and go, the fuck was I bothered by? Like, so if you can look back 10 years and you're feeling fine, why can't you do it now? So you can have that emotional shift from this terrible event and be okay. So why can't you do that shift now where you'll be okay? What is it that you can do 10 years from now of that letting go of the intense grip that whatever that situation or person has in your mind? You can do that over time, which means you can do it now as well. It's the same muscle. It's the same activity of letting go. So if it can happen then, it can happen now, right? It's not like certain behaviors of the mind are necessarily time-bound, right? So if you can get over shit, if you can learn to let go of shit, eventually, then you can do it at any time. But yes, if you've got a question, thank you, Guns. If you've got a question, put it in the chat. I want to thank you folks who have been here for the live. And those of you who are catching this on the replay, I really appreciate your support. In the store, Guns have put up the links. How to Be a Fantastic Lover. I finished this book. It's really good. It's not going to teach you how to be a man. It's not. It's not what it's for. All right. So if you got trouble with women and you think getting that book is going to make you better in the dating scene, it's not. Okay. That's not what it's for. It's not about talking to women. It's not about, getting them on your program or anything like that. Okay. It's about when you're sexually active, how to take where you are now to becoming a fantastic lover. And so you can get it now, even if you're not dating actively, to kind of like prep your mind and things like that and get you perhaps inspired to get out there and, interact with women, have sex with women. But this book will absolutely help you. It's chock full of fantastic information that's actionable. It's not theoretical. It's all things that I've gathered through experience, and it will definitely help you. All right. And there's other ebooks in there. There's a free ebook. There's another one about attraction, but it's a basic book. It's basically like how to put yourself together so that you're not some schmuck who, doesn't look good. Right. So yeah, just good information there about wardrobe, fragrances and things of that nature. Like, you guys need to have at least 8 fragrances at the bare minimum. All right. If you want to learn about fragrances, go on YouTube. There's a number of channels that are devoted to talking about reviewing different products. So there's this one lady, she's kind of cute. Curly Fragrance, I think her name is. Yeah, she's really interesting. I like watching her talk because she doesn't move her mouth or her teeth very much. She doesn't like open her mouth. She talks like this, like through her teeth the entire time. It's really weird. She has this weird habit of just not opening her teeth when she talks. So, but anyways, she's cute and she's very knowledgeable. But I suggest you guys have at least 8 fragrances. Okay. And so that would be 2 for each season. And those 2 would be night and day. So you have a night and day for spring, night and day for fall, night and day for winter, night and day for summer. And, my son is, he's become a fragrance collector, and he's all about like getting those big fucking bottles. Right. And I'm just like, dude, you don't need to get these giant bottles because eventually they do go away. And it's going to take you a long time to go through these bottles, especially if you have a large collection. So it's better to get the smaller ones, like 10 ml or even 5 ml, and get those 8, run through them, and then you can change them up. And you're not, if you come across one you're like kind of like on the fence about, you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. You're not sitting there on a giant bottle that you dropped $300 on, and you only like kind of halfway like it. Okay, so it's better to get just smaller bottles, and you can move them around with a little bit more freedom and creative license. So yeah, that's my suggestion. And you should just try out a bunch of different stuff. If you don't know what to try, those YouTube channels are very good for describing the notes that are in in these fragrances. But oftentimes, like, it's hard to really get a sense for what that's going to smell like when combined. She's like, oh, it's fruity and a little bit zesty, and it's got like undertones of bergamot and sage. It's like, okay, I get an idea of that, but what does it actually smell like? So what you do is you go on you go on eBay, and you just type in cologne samples or cologne samples for men. And there's stores that sell like tiny, like 2 ml bottles of samples, and their choices, they've got like 100 different choices to pick from. And they're not expensive at all. They're like maybe like $5 to $11 for one of those little bottles, just depending on what brand it is and how popular it is. So the prices fluctuate. But yeah, just get yourself a bunch of samples and then just make notes. Like, have yourself just a little pad and make notes of, maybe a star rating, what time of day you would wear it, what type of event, is this just for like hanging out at the park with a woman, right? Or is this for a like a fancy event, right? Would I wear this to a wedding? That sort of stuff. Is this for hanging out at the bar, nightclub? Is this wintertime sort of like lounge sort of smell? Or is this like summertime going to like an outdoor bar, right? So it's good to have a little notebook and try out those samples from eBay. So yeah, that's just a little bit about colognes. Make sure you get 8. That's at a minimum. Okay. So if that's all, I'm going to bring us to a close here. Also, if you guys have a desire for a consultation, I give free 30 to 45-minute consultations. The link is in my bio on Instagram, which is thedominance.academy. And oh, look at that. It's never too late to give her instructions, guys. Oh, whoops. So, go to thedominance.academy on Instagram, and in my bio there's a link to, coaching, the website. You can use the link to Calendly and pick a time to talk, and we can just talk about whatever you want. All right, it's all free, so get on it. There's no reason why you shouldn't. So, if there's nothing else, I'm going to pull this to a close. Thank you guys for coming to the show. I appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.